Genesis chapter 38. And just a heads up, this one's a bit on the graphic side, so if there's kids around. All right, so carrying on with the genealogies of Jacob's descendants, we looked at Joseph yesterday, and today's focus shifts to Judah. This is because these events fall chronologically in order to the events that happened with Joseph. So verse 1. And it came about at that time that Judah departed from his brothers and visited a certain Adullamite, whose name was Hira. So Judah was Jacob and Leah's fourth son, and his name meant praise. Adullam was a region to the west of Bethlehem, and the name meant cave. Verse 2. Judah saw there a daughter of a certain Canaanite whose name was Shua, and he took her and went into her. So she conceived and bore a son, and he named him Er. Then she conceived again and bore a son, and named him Onan. She bore still another son, and named him Shelah. And it was at Shezib that she bore him. Now Judah took a wife for his firstborn, and her name was Tamar. Verse 7. But Judah's firstborn, was evil in the sight of the Lord, so the Lord took his life. Then Judah said to Onan, his secondborn, Go into your brother's wife, and perform your duty as a brother-in-law to her, and raise up offspring for your brother. Onan knew that the offspring would not be his. So when he went into his brother's wife, he wasted his seed on the ground in order not to give offspring to his brother. But what he did was displeasing in the sight of the Lord, so he took his life also. So Judah hooks up with a Canaanite woman, and the result is messed up kids who were so bad, God somehow took their lives. And for those who claim God is evil for doing so, I would say that they don't understand the holiness of God nor the severity of sin and what results from disobeying his commands. And if they want to argue with God, then they can argue with God. Verse 11. Then Judah said to his daughter-in-law Tamar, Remain a widow in your father's house until my son Shelah grows up. For he thought, I am afraid that he too may die like his brothers. So Tamar went and lived in her father's house. Verse 12. Now after a considerable time, Shua's daughter, the wife of Judah, died. And when the time of mourning was ended, Judah went up to his sheep shearers at Timnah, he and his friend Hira the Adullamite. It was told to Tamar, Behold, your father-in-law is going up to Timnah to shear his sheep. So she removed her widow's garments and covered herself with a veil, and wrapped herself, and sat in the gateway of Enaim, which is on the road to Timnah, for she saw that Shelah had grown up, and she had not been given to him as a wife. When Judah saw her, he thought she was a harlot, for she had covered her face. Verse 16. So he turned aside to her by the road and said, Here now, let me come in to you, for he did not know that she was his daughter-in-law. Judah was a real piece of work. I'm not sure why the Lord didn't get rid of him either, but God's got his plans. Okay, and she said, What will you give me that you may come into me? He said, Therefore, I will send you a young goat from the flock. She said, Moreover, will you give a pledge until you send it? He said, What pledge shall I give you? And she said, Your seal and your cord and your staff that is in your hand. So he gave them to her and went into her, and she conceived by him. Then she arose and departed, and removed her veil, and put on her widow's garments. So the seal and the cord and the staff were for prominent men in the ancient Near East. Contracts would be endorsed with the cylinder seal he wore on a cord around his neck. Her request for the walking stick suggests it also had significant identifying marks on it. The custom of using 3 pieces of identification is attested to in Canaanite literature. Verse 20. When Judah sent the young goat by his friend the Adullamite to receive the pledge from the woman's hand, he did not find her. He asked the men of her place, saying, Where is the temple prostitute who was by the road at Enaim? But they said, There has been no temple prostitute here. So he returned to Judah and said, I did not find her, and furthermore, the men of the place said, There has been no temple prostitute here. Then Judah said, Let her keep them, otherwise we will become a laughingstock. After all, I sent this young goat, but you did not find her. Verse 24. Now it was about 3 months later that Judah was informed, Your daughter-in-law Tamar has played the harlot, and behold, she is also with child by harlotry. Then Judah said, Bring her out and let her be burned. It was while she was being brought out that she sent to her father-in-law, saying, I am with child by the man whom these things belong. And she said, Please examine and see, whose signet ring and cords and staff are these? Judah recognized them and said, She is more righteous than I, inasmuch as I did not give her to my son Shelah. And he did not have relations with her again. This whole thing is just so messed up and wrong, showing the results of intermingling with the Canaanites as God and Abraham had warned would be a problem. These people had no moral guidelines whatsoever. Verse 27, It came about at the time she was giving birth that, behold, there were twins in her womb. Verse 28, Moreover, it took place while she was giving birth. One put out a hand, and the midwife took and tied a scarlet thread on his hand, saying, This one came out first. But it came about as he drew back his hand that, behold, his brother came out. Then she said, What a breach you have made for yourself. So he was named Perez. Afterward, his brother came out, who had the scarlet thread on his hand, and he was named Zerah. It truly is amazing that Jesus would come from a line of such messed up ancestors. Perez would actually end up being a direct relative of King David, whose line would eventually lead to Mary, Jesus' mother. It just goes to show how desperately the world needed a savior. And but Jesus's lineage does prove that he is the Son of God, the son of Adam, deity and human. He is son of Abraham as to his nationality being the promised seed, and he is also the son of David as to royalty, the promised king who would usher in the glory of all Davidic promise. We will touch more on this in the New Testament when we get there. Actually, pretty soon. We're going to be in Matthew next. Please join me tomorrow as we continue to see the trials and tribulations that these Israelites get themselves into. Okay, thank you very much. Take care.